Well, it was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first big international outing, and he seems to have come out with flying colours on expected lines. It was what was sandwiched in the middle of Modi's nearly 30-minute speech in the United Nations General Assembly just moments ago that got the most attention. Just under 24 hours after Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif drew global focus on Kashmir and blamed India for the stalled Indo-Pak talks, Modi hit back dismissively, making it clear that it was up to Pakistan to renounce terror that it sponsors through its establishment and create the right atmosphere for those very talks. Modi also made it clear that there could be no third party in the talks between the two countries.
More than 6 decades ago, the United Nations passed resolutions to hold a plebiscite in Jammu and Kashmir. The people of Jammu and Kashmir are still waiting for the fulfillment of that promise. Many generations of Kashmiris have lived their lives under occupation, accompanied by violence and abuse of their fundamental rights. Kashmiri women in particular have suffered immensely. For decades, attempts have been made both under the UN auspices and bilaterally in the spirit of the Lahore Declaration to resolve this dispute. The core issue of Jammu and Kashmir has to be resolved. This is the responsibility of the international community. We cannot draw a veil on the issue of Kashmir until it is addressed in accordance with the wishes of the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
इस मंच पर बात उठाने से समाधान के प्रयास कितने सफल होंगे, इस पर कईयों को शक है। आज हमें बाढ़ से पीड़ित कश्मीर के लोगों को सहायता देने पर ध्यान देना चाहिए, जो हमने भारत में बड़े पैमाने पर आयोजित किया है। और इसके लिए सिर्फ भारत में कश्मीर उसी का ख्याल रखने पर हम रुके नहीं हैं। हमने पाकिस्तान को भी कहा, क्योंकि उस क्षेत्र में भी बाढ़ का असर था। हमने उनको भी कहा कि हम जिस प्रकार से कश्मीर में बाढ़ पीड़ितों की सेवा कर रहे हैं, हम पाकिस्तान में भी उन बाढ़ पीड़ितों की सेवा करने के लिए हमने सामने से प्रस्ताव रखा था।
Well, lots of different perceptions and interpretations of what precisely Narendra Modi's response was all about. Was it the robust, direct response that some expected? Was it a dismissive backhand that some people are interpreting it as? Was it everything that was possible in terms of a response, given what Nawaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, said yesterday in his speech just over 24 hours ago at the United Nations General Assembly? Joining us live to take forward our special live coverage now is consulting editor of the India Today Group, Rajdeep Sardesai, with special guests to take this forward. It's over to you, Rajdeep.
Thanks very much, Shiv. Yes, let's get first reactions to Narendra Modi's speech, debut speech at the United Nations General Assembly. Mark Brunner, director of the India Caucus, the Senate India Caucus in Washington, is with us. Samir Saran of the Observer Research Group with us, and Sadanand Dhume, foreign policy analyst from Washington, joining us. Appreciate them with us. Jayant Sinha, member of Parliament of the BJP, will join us shortly. But Mark, let me get your first reactions to it. You've been saying that a lot of what this visit is about is not just what happened at the UNGA today, but also what's going to happen in Washington, particularly when he meets the business community. Do you believe that Narendra Modi has set the stage, in a sense, for his meetings by being statesmanlike in this speech? You know, he didn't get into a battle with Pakistan. There was no, what we call in India, tu me, a kind of fisticuff with Pakistan over Kashmir. Do you think that was a good thing, that Modi needs to raise the level of the debate when he comes to America?
Well, I think you're right. Clearly, the Prime Minister has two audiences. One is the domestic, and then it's also the global audience. Here in the U.S., I think the business-to-business relationship is going to be key. And again, the question in many CEOs' minds is India open for business, or is it business as usual? And so what they're going to want to hear is, what are going to be the Prime Minister's policies on things like retroactive tax, on domestic content rules, and then also on protection of our intellectual property. And I think they're going to want to see a real commitment that India is willing to be a partner. And again, I would say he's having meetings with the absolute top tier CEOs, Caterpillar, Boeing, Goldman Sachs. I mean, these are the big guys in America. So having these meetings directly with the CEOs, I think, is going to be very productive for both sides.
Mark's first reaction is, of course, that Modi has two constituencies. One is the global constituency, one is the domestic constituency. Samir Saran, who do you think Modi addressed today in that speech? Was it primarily a global constituency? Was this Narendra Modi trying to show himself as a statesman, not getting caught, as we've been discussing, in any tug of war with Pakistan? Yes, he spoke about Pakistan using state policy as terror, about the distinction that countries seemingly erroneously draw between the good terrorist and the bad terrorist, and did give firm signals to Pakistan, but lifted the speech well beyond Islamabad.
He was statesmanly. He was maybe a little dismissive of Nawaz Sharif's speech. He handled the issue very well, very softly, but with firmness. But like you mentioned, Rajdeep, he traversed the world geography, Latin America, Africa, the near Middle East, Nepal, the Asian waters, oceans. He covered themes: climate change, he covered cyberspace, he covered outer space, food security, development issues, which are of vital importance to Indian economy and Indian political story as well. So all in all, I think he responded to both audiences. He took Indian issues to a global arena, and he framed global issues so that they respond to Indian needs.
But what was there anything distinct about this speech? Manmohan Singh has spoken about terror. Manmohan Singh has spoken about recasting the United Nations, something that Narendra Modi spoke of in his speech today. What was different? Was there anything distinctive? Amongst, many of us would like to see something distinctive when Narendra Modi speaks, Sadanand. Was there enough of distinctiveness in this speech that marks him out as someone who is going to create a foreign policy paradigm very different to his predecessors?
I think some distinctiveness you get simply from the fact that this is Narendra Modi, that this is a powerful, popularly elected, deeply popular politician addressing it. So that in itself gives it something. My own sense is that the emphasis on terrorism was stronger. I thought the fact that he is very clear that the world has to work on this together in the context of the rise of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. I thought that the focus, if I had to pick one issue, was terrorism, and I think that he did that with greater force than his predecessors.
There will be those who say that maybe Modi is at his best when he's extempore. I mean, there was a bit of this speech at times, and I think Sadanand referred to it when we were on Aaj Tak a short while ago, that there was an element of the bureaucrat which had crept in, which is very unusual to Modi. I mean, he seemed to be in portions reading out more than being extempore when he's at his best.
And I can explain that. When he was dealing with certain matters where India is trying to use the multilateral platforms to its advantage, be it cyber, be it the whole debate on climate change and the UNFCCC, be it on other matters where the UN is involved, he will go by the official line because we have built up a certain position. I do not think he's going to create a disruption on those particular processes. But he was far more, you're right, he was far more extempore and flamboyant on certain other matters when he was speaking.
Yeah, it's more than that. It's the structure of the speech, right? It was a grab bag. It was like there was a checklist. Everything that the MEA wants is in that speech. It wasn't that, okay, I'm going to focus on 4 important things and then leave the others for another occasion.
So how much are you giving him on 10 as a result?
I'm giving him 6.
You're giving him 6 because you would have liked a little bit more of the Narendra Modi to come out in the speech.
He is a gifted speaker.
And you would have liked to see a bit of that, more of the gifted speaker rather than someone leading from a prepared text. Samir, how much are you giving him?
I believe that he has to protect Indian interest. He had to be statesmanly-like in dealing with Pakistan. He has done both of them well. I give him 8 on 10.
You give him 8 on 10, 6 on 10. I'm giving him a 7 on 10. I would have also liked to see a little bit more of the real Narendra Modi emerge. Jayant Sinha, BJP MP, who presumably will have to give him 10 on 10, that joins us. But, what was distinctive about the Modi speech? What for you stood out about Narendra Modi today at the United Nations?
Well, I think, Rajdeep, what we have to understand is we are here in New York, sitting here. This is the global stage. And I think what the Prime Minister did today was really elevate himself on that global stage and project himself not just as somebody leading a country, but a very serious, important global leader as well, as a true global statesman. And when people make a list of the top 3 or 4 or 5 people that are going to shape the way the world really sort of takes on important issues, he's really projected himself today. And this is his first speech at the UN General Assembly. His first speech among a large number of global leaders. He's really been able to elevate himself to that level. I think that's a remarkable accomplishment based both on his speech and his activities in New York. I'd give him a 10 on 10.
Yeah, I knew you'd give him a 10 on 10, but would you not have liked to see him give me an overarching view of India's foreign policy in terms of the way Narendra Modi sees foreign policy? He hit all the right buttons. He spoke about terrorism, he spoke about development, he spoke about India's place in the world order in terms of India should have a seat on the UN Security Council. But a lot of this has been said by previous prime ministers. I was hoping that there would be something that would be the Narendra Modi stamp. Did you see what is the stamp of Narendra Modi on foreign policy?
No, I think he said that when he said that Vasudev Kutumbakam, which is all the world is one family, and we have to all pull together to deal with these issues. And he particularly singled out global terrorism. He didn't say that there is good terrorism or bad terrorism. There's global terrorism because terrorism is a crime against humanity, and we are all part of the same humanity. And it's those issues of terrorism, climate change, and so on that we have to work together on. And as I said earlier, because of the manner in which he spoke, the manner in which he addressed the issues, people really see him now as being one of the global leaders who can take on these issues that really pertain to all of humanity, not just India.
He also interestingly spoke of yoga. To a world audience, yoga is a good way to sell India, but it's also an old Orientalist way almost to sell India. And I come back to it. What would I was hoping that I would see Narendra Modi there, which is the only reason I'm giving 7 and not an 8, which is that I would have liked to see that one thing that would have been, really casting him as different to his predecessors.
See, Karthik, where I agree with you is that we didn't see as much of his personality
as
when we see him at his best. Where I disagree with you is that I think it's a little bit unfair to expect great newness in content. This is the Prime Minister of India. The Prime Minister of India represents Indian interests, whether it's Manmohan Singh or whether it's Narendra Modi.
So there's a continuity in foreign policy. There is a continuity in foreign policy. Particularly the MEA has. Prime Ministers have changed. The MEA hasn't.
You can't expect content to change dramatically.
In fact, let me be provocative here.
Yes.
I think the Joint Secretary Prime Minister nexus in this government is stronger than ever before.
Right.
It is highly likely that what the bureaucrats really do believe to be Indian interests will be something that Narendra Modi will pay heed to.
Sure.
Because he spends more time with the GSs than his predecessor did.
What I will say is that I don't think any Prime Minister has spoken as resolutely about cyber security, for example, that Mr. Modi did. So clearly there was an attempt. I mean that was one issue which I don't think I've heard previous Prime Ministers speak about that. I was hoping he'd speak more about climate change and environment, which was perhaps missing in his speech. But there is a sense that what are the 2 or 3 elements that you believe will now form the basis of Mr. Modi's foreign policy? What do you think are the 1 or 2, 3 elements that will form the basis going ahead?
No, I think the 3 elements were very clear in the speech, and I think the first and important thing that he said was the world's a family. We've got to all work together. We've got to deal with these issues together. I think the other very important element in his foreign policy, which he's shown right from his inauguration as well, is that we have to really make sure that our neighborhood is stable and safe and peaceful, and that's a very important priority for him. He certainly is putting a tremendous amount of emphasis on that. And the third element, which I think is very unique, and you all said that it was really something that at some level the bureaucrats and others have really put together. But I think there's one very important, both the neighborhood part as well as the fact that he's emphasizing and re-emphasizing the role of technology is very much the Prime Minister's thinking and very much his guidance on our foreign policy. So I think in that sense,
I think you make an important point about technology, and I think that's where I'm going to see more of the Modi stamp. Let me go to Gaurav Sawant for a moment, who's outside UNGA with the entourage that is following Narendra Modi. He is the Pied Piper of New York as far as Indian Americans are concerned. So out there, a lot of people have come in, I'm told, Gaurav, also from India. A few I met even from Gujarat who have been tracking Narendra Modi, a lot of his supporters who've come here to New York almost to cheer him on as cheerleaders. What are the cheerleaders of Narendra Modi saying there down at the United Nations?
Rajdeep, the excitement here is tremendous. The number of people who turned up, and if we could just look around, there are Narendra Modi cutouts all over this place. America loves Modi. We love Prime Minister Modi. Those are the kind of banners and posters that have come all over this place. There are people dressed as Swami Dayanand. There are people who are dressed as Narendra Modi, wearing Narendra Modi masks. And let's talk to them. They've actually been singing patriotic songs. आप लोग सुबह से यहाँ पर गाना गा रहे हैं, भजन गा रहे हैं. कौन-कौन से गाने आप नरेंद्र मोदी जी को सुनाना चाहते थे?
सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा, ऐ मेरे प्यारे वतन, ऐ मेरे प्यारे वतन, ऐ मेरे उजले चमन, तुझे पे दिल कुर्बान, तू ही मेरी आरज़ू, तू ही मेरी आबरू, तू ही मेरी जान, ऐ मेरे देश की धरती सोना उगले उगले हीरे मोती, और मेरे देश की धरती, मेरे देश की धरती.
Rajdeep, as you were pointing out, it's a hot day today, quite unlike a New York afternoon. But these people are braving this heat and they're enjoying themselves. It's a party. They wanted to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They could not. But now they say, we'll all go to the Madison Square Garden and listen to him tomorrow, and go to that Central Park this evening and try and listen to Narendra Modi. So the excitement here is tremendous. They say that he's emerging as a leader on a global stage. They're also very happy that he didn't talk about Pakistan, responding to Nawaz Sharif in the manner in which Nawaz Sharif perhaps expected. Right, Gaurav Sawant out there. Indians, of course, as I said, for Indian Americans, he's become a bit of a Pied Piper. So it doesn't even matter what Narendra Modi says in the UN, they would have still been there cheering him on. Let's just settle the Pakistan question. I know you've been telling me earlier today that the Indian media is more obsessed with Pakistan than even the Prime Minister. But do you believe that Mr. Modi did enough to send out the firm signal to Nawaz Sharif that Kashmir is a bilateral issue? The United Nations is not the forum where this issue is going to be settled.
His message to Nawaz Sharif was, grow up. Your coming and raving and ranting at the UN General Assembly is not going to help the bilaterals. Come and talk to me, create the right atmosphere, and let's find a solution to the problem. I think he was an adult admonishing a child who had been raving and ranting, and I think that was a nice posture in his speech vis-a-vis Pakistan.
Was that one of the strengths of Modi? That, you know, in a sense, maybe his core constituency, those people with whom Gaurav was, would have expected him to be much more belligerent. But Modi, to his great credit, refrained from making Pakistan the center of his speech. He spoke for more than 20-25 minutes. I think the references to Pakistan would be about 3 or 4 minutes at best.
So this is where I'll agree with Jayant and say that on that particular section he gets a 10 out of 10. Because he took the high road, he framed his speech in terms of taking larger global issues. Then he did come down to Pakistan very briefly, mentioned terrorism, and basically took the high road there again and said, we wanted to help you with your floods. And so he was smart, he was diplomatic. He noted Nawaz Sharif, but he didn't dwell upon it. So that was very well handled, I thought.
You know, is that going to be something that will be his calling card, you think, Jayant Sinha, that Narendra Modi is not going to make Pakistan the sole basis of his foreign policy? He's spoken to the Chinese president, he's visited Japan, he's now in the United States. He isn't going to make Nawaz Sharif and Pakistan the basis of deciding whether he's a successful prime minister or not. And is that the way forward, in a way?
No, I think that is exactly right, Rajdeep. The reality is, again, as I was saying earlier, that the Prime Minister has really elevated himself on the global stage. He's a global statesman. There's a range of issues that he's got to work on. Obviously, Pakistan is important, but the rest of the neighborhood is also important. We have challenges in Nepal, we have challenges in Bangladesh. All of those also have to be taken into account. And the issue in Pakistan, as you know, is that they would always like to descend into that same level and drag us and trap us into a set of discussions that are ultimately quite futile and quite sterile. So we don't necessarily have to play the game, and by doing what he has done today, by admonishing them and by saying to them that this is a bilateral matter that has to be dealt at a bilateral level and framing it within the overall picture of global terrorism, I think he's dealt with it exactly the right way.
But at some stage you're going to have to restart that dialogue. You know, the worry with Modi as far as Pakistan is concerned, that he comes to power, invites Nawaz Sharif for his swearing in, there's sari and shawl diplomacy that takes place, and then suddenly he decides to call up even foreign secretary talks because the Pakistan High Commissioner meets the Hurriyat. So somewhere will Mr. Modi have to develop a greater consistency in the way he deals with Pakistan.
Can I jump in on that?
Yes.
Because I don't think it's inconsistent. I think what he's saying is very simple. He's saying, I want to talk to you, I want peace, I want better relations, but you also have a responsibility to create the right environment for those better relations. I don't think it's contradictory. I think it's quite consistent.
You think it's quite consistent? You
Absolutely.
don't see a contradiction in the way he's dealt with
Again,
Pakistan?
what was it that he did in Delhi?
Yes.
Your foreign office informed the High Commissioner that that action of talking to the Hurriyat could jeopardize the talk. Pakistan had a call to make. Pakistan decided that they would rather continue with the legacy arrangement and have that conversation than engage with India. Again, what has he said today? He has said that I want the conducive environment. He has not put conditions, specific conditions there. He said, I want a conducive environment. I want to create peace. I want to do it bilaterally, and I want this dialogue to continue. Now, the reality is that Pakistan, first of all, needs to resolve itself right now. And I don't think that we should be really focusing on that particular matter so obsessively, because Pakistan is not ready for those kind of conversations at this stage.
You know, in a sense, many will believe that the real meat of this visit will start now. He's finished the United Nations. You know, this is something which was almost ritualistic. You go to the United Nations, you sort of give a larger worldview. Now comes the real meat of the visit, meeting businessmen, meeting with Obama. Yes, there's the celebrity note of Madison Square Gardens tomorrow. But do you get a sense that India's business is business? That India's foreign policy will be increasingly driven by geoeconomics, will be driven by issues like cybersecurity, possibly environment and climate change. And it's the old world which will see us driven purely by Pakistan and how we deal with Pakistan.
No, I think Rajdeep, you're exactly right. India's business is to provide prosperity for all. I wouldn't say it's necessarily business, because there's a lot that we have to do as far as social programs, welfare programs are concerned and so on. But really what is central and most important for us right now is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. We've got to bring economic development to all our people. Now, in support of that, obviously we need a peaceful environment. We need to do what we need to do on the global stage. Certainly we need to meet with President Obama, establish the American relationship once again on sound footing. But the most important thing is going to have to be to ensure that we secure the cooperation and full support of global businesses, which is really, I think, the centerpiece of this trip. And it's really the G2B part, the government to business part, that I think is going to be the most important and I think the most productive aspect of this trip.
Is that what we are all aligned on? That increasingly foreign policy is going to be G2B, not just G2G?
He has said that a few times, that economics will be the driver of foreign policy. He has also, I think, basically in the last 6 months been this very high profile Indian salesperson trying to sell brand India.
Indian CEO, almost like
Indian
a CEO.
And the difference is, and you could say that Manmohan Singh did this too, and other. The difference is that here is an Indian CEO with the political mandate to sell brand India, with the political mandate to create the changes needed for achieving the environment that Jayant was talking about here.
I think
Yes,
that's
sir.
true in general, but I think it's even more true in the United States. Because you see, in a place like Japan, the state still plays a greater role in economic relations. So there is a G2G element in Indian economic diplomacy. Over here, it's disproportionately the private sector. It's the CEOs who Modi will be meeting with. And so in the United States in particular, the centerpiece of this, as Jayant said, is reaching out to the business community, informing them that the old days are over, India is back in business, open to business again, rolling out the red carpet, slashing red tape. Please come and invest.
Rajiv, there's one very important aspect to this, which goes back to the way Gujarat's economic progress happened, which is that the Prime Minister is saying, trust me, which is what he did in Gujarat. In Gujarat, you could go to him and say, this is the kind of industry I want to put in. These are the kinds of policies that we think will be supportive of business, will be supportive of economic development. And when you sat across the table with the Chief Minister then and said, this is what you would like to accomplish, he would look you in the eye and say, yes, we'll get it done. And it's exactly that same personal credibility, that ability to roll up his shirt sleeves and get things done, that he's bringing to India right now. And that's what he's going to communicate to all these global business leaders that he's going to be meeting over the next few days.
You know, I also find it interesting that, most of his bilaterals are with South Asian leaders, Rajapaksa with the Nepal Prime Minister, with the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. He is trying to somewhere also emerge as a sort of leader of South Asia. I get the sense from the time when he sort of brought South Asian leaders to his swearing in that's also part of his foreign policy vision. I don't think he articulated it in his UN General Assembly speech, but it appears to me that Narendra Modi likes to see himself as emerging as a possible leader of South Asia. Is that something you believe also is part of the Modi foreign policy paradigm?
I said very much that is part of one of his important priorities for foreign policy. I think it makes all the sense in the world for us to do that, both in terms of defense as well as in terms of economic growth. as far as defense is concerned, if we have good relationships with all of our neighbors, we deal with some of the challenges that they are facing, we are facing, whether it's climate change, whether it's growth, whether it's trade, I think it really creates a peaceful neighborhood so that we can go ahead and pursue our own economic progress. And then, of course, because of the fact that we are the largest player, obviously, in South Asia, because our industries and our businesses are the most well developed, for us, even from an export perspective, opening up a Bangladesh, which is 175 million people, is a tremendous opportunity for us as well.
Can I just raise one final point, which is, I'm getting it on Twitter because I said that Modi was not on the front page, certainly of the New York Times this morning. He's not. Apparently, he is in an international edition at the moment. But in New York, what is it that Narendra Modi needs to do in an American worldview which is dominated by ISIL? You said to me earlier that maybe Obama at the moment doesn't have the appetite to perhaps engage with India because he is at the moment worried about what's happening in Syria and Iraq. Do you believe that Mr. Modi can be a partner, I'm not even using the word ally, be a friend in this war against terror and thereby sort of remove the mistrust of the last 18 months, reboot this relationship with the United States?
So I think that is going to be the key deliverable of this visit.
The key deliverable is rebooting.
Is resetting the relationship, rebooting the relationship after 2 years where both countries had dropped the ball.
Right.
Now, the key deliverable from America is not going to come from White House, it is going to come from the American businesses. And that is why the Monday meetings are extremely crucial. Finally, I think, like I mentioned earlier, Rajdeep, India is now operating at distant shores, at the very least in trying to get its people back when they are stranded in these volatile regions. And I think this new complexity in West Asia and Middle East offers us a possible avenue of cooperation where we can actually work together in trying to respond to our individual vulnerabilities.
Do you believe that will happen? I mean, as a result of this UNJ, was Modi hinting on that?
I don't know if it will happen, but I actually think it is completely in India's interest for terrorism to be seen as a global, indivisible threat.
Correct.
For India to take a position on ISIS and not treat it as, well, this is in a neighborhood that doesn't affect us directly. This is part of a continuum. It grows out of an ideology. And I think that Modi was definitely hinting in his speech that is his own worldview also.
No, but do we only provide moral support? We provide principled support. Can we go beyond that? Do the Americans expect a little bit more from us?
I don't think anyone realistically expects India to be running airstrikes or boots on the ground. But India can provide vocal moral support.
Vocal moral support.
And some logistics as well.
Okay, vocal moral support. No, logistics as well?
Yes, because we are sending ships too.
I don't think it will happen.
Let me explain to you. We have been operating, our carriers to bring our people home, haven't we?
Yes.
Now, if this is done as part of a global coordinated effort, why not? If we were to bring Bangladeshis back as well, would it harm our image and reputation as being a regional leader?
You almost seem to be suggesting that India should put boots on the ground.
Not boots on the ground. If I'm evacuating my people, I think it is incumbent on me to also think about the region. If there are people from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka stuck in other parts of the world, why can't India take leadership in bringing those people back?
Jen, let me give you a final word on that. Terrorism.
I agree.
25-minute speech, I think Modi referred to terrorism at least half a dozen times. So, it is a common, it is a shared interest with America. We can see that the enemy is common in a way. Do you believe that as we talk of geoeconomics, we will also have to look at global terror as the other major sort of underpinning of this relationship?
No, I think the Prime Minister has been very artful in the way in which he has positioned India in this whole global war on terror. Because on the one hand, he's talked about the forces of order, the forces of civilization, humanity, democracy, human rights, all of that, which is what we all subscribe to. And on the other hand, he's talked about the forces of disorder, the crimes against humanity which terrorists are doing. And so by doing it that way, by positioning it in that manner, he is building that coalition and really establishing India as one of the leaders of that coalition to deal with these forces of disorder. Of course, we are being impacted by that in our own country, but this is a very global phenomena. There are people that are moving around all of these across these borders. They're getting support, they're getting a lot of help from people across borders, and by tamping down on that and by working on all of that, I think it really opens up an opportunity for us to be part of this winning coalition.
Okay, so we've got a sense of first reaction now. Jayant Sinha, remember, is part of the cheerleaders of Narendra Modi, and I've been saying it openly. I said it at the India Today roundtable yesterday. He should be in government. I don't know why he's not in government, and I hope he will be soon. One of the more articulate voices of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Samir Saran has already given an 8 on 10, so Modi should be
There are only
satisfied.
3 people who are cheerful today: Facebook, Twitter, and Baba Ramdev.
Facebook, Twitter, and Baba Ramdev finally finds, but he could have mentioned Baba Ramdev. Then.
This
He
on a
mentioned
lighter
yoga,
note.
but on a lighter note, Baba Ramdev and yoga find themselves on the high table of the United Nations. Sadanand Dhume would have liked to see, I think, a little bit more of imagination, perhaps, if I may use the word, from Narendra Modi in his speech, but he's giving him a 6 on 10. I think the overall sense one gets is that Modi's made a fine debut at the UN General Assembly. He's got more opportunities to wow the US audience. Tomorrow, Madison Square Gardens, or Modison Square Gardens as it's being called tomorrow. And then on Monday with the business leaders, some of the top business leaders of America, and then on Tuesday with Barack Obama. So there's plenty more of Modi's Mission America here on Headlines today, and we'll come back with much more as we get reactions from the ground here in New York. We expect an official statement from the Ministry of External Affairs a short while from now. Back to you in the studio.